Now, our gospel scripture today is Luke 16, 1 through 15. This is about values. And I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about something. I have these Thursday meetings with the football team, before practice. It's just kind of our little men's group. Just me and them, and it's about everything but football. I mean, there's a few things I throw in there, but it's about life. It's about things. And we talked about some of this, and I'll get into it after the scripture. Kind of interesting what happened. Jesus told his disciples, there was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be manager any longer. The manager said to himself, what shall I do now? My master's taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their house. So he called in each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, how much do you owe my master? 900 gallons of olive oil, he replied. The manager told him, take your bill, sit down quickly, and make it 450. Then he asked the second, how much do you owe? 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than they are of people in the light. I'll tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. But whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No one can serve two masters. Either you hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. The Pharisees who loved money heard all this and were sneering at Jesus. He said to them, you are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of others, but God knows your hearts. What people value highly is detestable in God's sight. Detestable. So, that's why I just, immediately came to mind, true value. What is true value? What is true riches? Now, all of us, we've been doing all this, for a long time. And I think our value systems have been honed to, what's really important in life. So I thought, well, I can't really ask them to think about it because, all you people, all of y'all, you already understand what really value is. You've had children and grandchildren, and you see what really it means something. But how were you back before that? So, better bunch I thought than a bunch of teenage football players. There's got to be some warped minds in there, right? And it's understandable because of the media and because of the way things done in TV shows like The Most Expensivest, where they find, go out and just look for what piece of junk is worth millions and, get some rapper or superstar to buy it. So I asked the boys, I said, all right, I'm going to say one thing. I said, I want you to think real quick, what's the most valuable possession you own? And they all thought. I said, now, what's the most valuable thing that you would want to own? I said, all right. I said, let me hear a few things. I was expecting, well, diamonds, gold, the best electronic wear, the things that people strive to get better, to get more toys. I had 3 immediate answers from kids that are always good kids at practice. And one of them said, well, my family. I went, all right, he's jumping the gun on me here. I wasn't expecting that. And then another one said, well, football. And I said, no, you're just telling me what I want to hear now. I said, really, what thing? And they all just kind of looked at me, well, yeah, they're all, there's one thing. And I said, well, that's the point, guys. And I said, how many of you think a diamond is really a valuable thing? And they should be worth that much money. And they all agreed that, well, yeah, they're valuable and it should be worth that much money. I said, that's value. I said, some of them you got to put in the safety deposit box to keep them safe. And, it's like having money in a bank is having that diamond. I said, but you might know what a diamond is. And apparently they don't go that far into it in biology. But I said, you know what a diamond is? I said, it's compacted carbon over millions of years. In other words, it's a rock. It's just a pretty rock. All minerals are deposits of a particular mineral. All gems, part of our conglomerate in different geographical areas. But it's still a dead burn rock. All it was underground, under pressure. And somebody dug down and thought, wow, that's pretty. Wonder how much we can get out of that. That's where the danger is. If the first idiot that pays the price has ruined it for everybody else. And people do that with religion. People do that with when they go in there selecting, this sounds good. Oh, we don't need to say that. That don't sound, that sounds like it might upset something, No, just a rock. The value is what somebody else, so if the value is what a human has put on it, and that even goes for money. Now we're trapped in that system. But that piece of paper, it's only worth what they say it is. If it crashes, all they got to do is say, oh, it's not worth anything now, and it's not. There's no real value other than what it's made out of. And I could see them starting to, well, we never looked at it from that way, but the thing that impressed me was some of them already kind of knew what value was. And these are kids that are in good homes, but they've seen things. They've had people die of cancer. They've had parents have cancer. They've had grandparents die of stuff. So they've seen, and they've been there, and they know that that some things are just more important. That was impressive to me. Where'd they get this? I wasn't expecting that because I think they're all a bunch of punks, and then turns out they're not. It's just, we don't give people enough credit. We don't give young people enough credit. And it's the big trap of those who don't understand, thinking that, I have a good friend to this day. I mean, I love the guy to death, but I am so sick of hearing about what something costs. Seriously, man, 70 years old, he's still talking about, well, I went and got the best tires you can get the other day, and all this stuff. And I said, well, good for you, man. I got pretty good tires, the cheapest ones I can get my hands on. It's just, where's your values? And even people in churches, I've noticed over the years, growing up and serving different ones, there are people in there with different values. They're good people. But when it comes right down to something that is upsetting or something that may be even crossing the line into, heaven forbid, political, they have their own set of values, and they use that to guide this instead of the other way around. Use this to guide your value system. Now, we all know now, value. Number one thing is we're still alive. We're still kicking, whether we're sick or ill or something's wrong or not. That's every day. You know, value in just general health. Value in knowing you got a friend. You know, if somebody came up to you, and I asked them, I said, somebody came up to you and wanted to give you the most perfect, beautiful jewelry or diamond that's just priceless. They can't put a price on it. Said, we're going to give this to you, and you can take and put this in the bank and do whatever you want with it. But you got to give up all your friends. You're not going to have any friends. You got to have one for the other. And I think even they were going, well, no, that's not worth it. You know, I can work and make the money to do it. Yeah, you can, but don't work, make money just looking for that. You know, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to do that and I'm going to buy that. Well, once you work hard, make some money and help the community. They don't care about your rock. Only you care about the rock. Maybe somebody that you give it to that thinks, oh, that's impressive, that's sweet. It's a rock. You know, I never could bear to buy rings and stuff and all that because I've always just went, and then it's a rock. You know, I don't get it. But that's where we are, and that's where people go, and it permeates media. You got all these things, and everything's more expensive. Well, it's like taxes. I don't complain about it. They want to raise taxes, hey, whatever. Because I go back to the Bible, and Jesus made it clear. Render unto Caesar's what is Caesar's, give God what's God. Separate the two. They won't give them more. Because that's not as important as doing this. It's praising God and following Him. And you know, the value systems, you know, my values in all this spiritual life have had to grow over the years. And I think that's made me even stronger. And, you know, people know they can come up to me and I'm not going to preach at them. Look, I've told the boys, I'm not going to tell you not to do stuff. I'm not going to sit there and say, don't do drugs. You know, don't do all this. Don't do all. They get enough of that. It's our job to sit them down and go, this is what's going to happen. And this is what you need to do. Not don't do this. This is what you need to do. Come to church. I got a few of them. They're just right there. They keep saying they're going to come, and I know one day they'll finally come. You know, it's hard to, but I know they will. Because I keep telling them. I'm not telling you not to do anything. I'm not telling you not to live your life. I'm telling you just come and join us. It rubs off. The value of this rubs off. So what's your job in all this? What's our job, my job, and your job in all this? Since we know what the value is, we've got to show it to others. You know, we've always said, don't go, you go out here and you do things and you preach with as few words as possible. It's another thing where there's actions. You know, man, I know that guy's super rich, but why didn't he buy a bigger house? Or why didn't he buy a Mercedes or something? You know, because there's no value in it to him. His value is working with the community. You know, that's what we have to teach. That's what we have to show them. And we have to bring it up. You know, that's why I talk to these guys. It's a men's group. We just happen to be there the day of practice. If they want to talk about football or anything else, they know they can come to me. I've had 4 of them so far come up about anger management. That's a good one to deal with, especially as I want a football player who keeps getting 15-yard penalties. Anger management. Not happy at home. And just like, I don't know what to do. Just basic. You know, I'm a teenager. I'm stupid and I'm lost. And they know it. That's all they got to do is come and talk. I don't tell them. I listen. And inevitably, they work their way up, talk their way around, right back, and figure it out for themselves if you just listen. But we got to spread these values. You know, true value is who we are. You know, I've always heard your true character is who you are when nobody's looking. That's your true character. How are you when nobody's looking? Sometimes you got to look at yourself and go, how am I really coming off? Do I do enough to impress, you know, living with Jesus? We all know how hard it is to get people, especially when you know, as kids they go to church, and as grandma, and then as they grow up, they just like, that was drudgery, I'm not doing that again. Well, there's other ways. But you'll eventually start coming because they know they learn the value of it. So, I was really happily surprised with the answers I got. I was expecting, you know, and then I was going to, you know, take off into them. They beat me to the punch. And they were sincere. They weren't just saying what I wanted to hear, except for the one guy that brought it out football. And so anyway, that's what I wanted to kind of talk today. And value, you know, y'all know I've been going through this stuff. I even find value in that of people reaching out. People want, you know, how you doing? People wanting to help. Guys, I never really had a whole lot of that. Because I always had my mom and dad or my brother. And they did everything. And until right now, it's the first time in my life I've not had any of that. And, you know, like, I've got to get people to help me. So that increases the value to me because I never felt like I did enough. And now people, when they do something for you, the more you let them do and the more gracious you can be about it, the more blessed they are. You see what I'm saying? You got to let people help you. Because if you don't, you're denying them the value of helping you. So, true value. Not just a hardware store. But it's truly what life is. It's true value. It's not the human value that is set upon something. Like I said, even the churches will do it. Big, you know, people that go to Crossroads and Southland and Lexington and the satellite of Southland. And, you know, right now, there's probably between 400 and 500 people in every one of them. And they've got a full stage. But a lot of them, that's what they value. They don't value this. They don't get this. They don't understand that we are a lot closer than they're ever going to be to anybody in there. They have a ministry team, like 12 of them. Who do you get to know? The senior minister doesn't know anybody. He doesn't have time. That's somebody else's job. So they're going to church and they're praising, and I know they believe, and I know they're really, it's good, bless them, they're going. But so many of them are going with the wrong mindset. Some of them are going in with we are who we are the whatever. We're right, they're wrong, but we're here, and we're going to keep, you know, just do this, and we can take care of ourselves. You know, there's some that just do that. They don't work with other churches. They say, well, we got this because we do it right. Values. Values are arbitrary. Values are something you can't pin down. So I guess the main point, and to wrap it up, the main point to all this lesson and this scripture is people are shrewd. People deal with other people shrewdly. And they get, even that man goes, oh man, that was actually pretty slick what you did there. He still got the stuff owed him, but because he did these people a favor with their bill, even the manager, even the owner knows, look, this guy, he did a smart thing. He set himself up because I'm firing him. So I'm glad he's friends with these people now. And he commended him. The shrewd appreciate the shrewd. See what I'm saying? You can't be shrewd with God. People try to be shrewd, you go into church and try to work it their way. The 1 day a week Christian, the Sunday morning Christian. The ones that so many people that don't go to church anymore like to just use that cheap word and say hypocrites. That's easy. That's too cheap, man. Come on. That's easy to say because we're different. We're real believers. Some do ostracize. Some do make you feel bad. We don't want to do that, man. We don't care what you do, who you are. We're here to praise Jesus. Live the best we can with God. Count the blessings and pray and help other people. It's really not that hard. So that's what we have to overcome, is the world values. World values are a big hurdle for spiritual life. But it's our job to show it. So, show your true value. And keep in mind that beware of the dead burn rocks. There's rocks out there, there's pretty rocks out there all over the place. Different shapes, different kinds, different things. Be sure it's not just a rock.